12 o'clock according to that top there, so we're going to get started. My name is Richard Goulet. I am one of the associate lecturers in research and associate deans at the graduate school. There are three of us that hold that title: myself, Mr. Rowe in chemistry, and Alexis Sam from the department. Of the three of us, my main portfolio, my main responsibility is daily operations management. And put in here is what I student with two exceptions. Welcome to this session of our graduate training series, or GrTS. We're speaking in the back. I still have not convinced our project management team to serve GrTS. One of these days, I'm going to convince them I don't want GrTS rather than orange sandwiches. A few quick housekeeping things. The next GrTS session will be January 16th. You're planning to apply for jobs sometime this year. Okay, so the next one is tips for doing for a job. So you might want to come to that one. How many of you have been to a graduate student social? Very many. Like 4 times a year. Both graduate student socials. The next one of those will be November 29th at the Cache Valley Fun Park. It's a chance to go bowling, it's a chance to interact with students from other programs, talk to somebody outside of your lab, outside of your little barn, just cubicles, a chance to get off campus and enjoy yourself. So, today's topic is tips for dealing with conflict. And the reason I went through this little exercise here is I wanted to see how you guys feel about graduate school. And if I look at this list, there are things like this one. There's things like this one, certainly this one, this one, this one, certainly this one. Basically, most all of these things are in some way can be related to conflict and stress. And the focus today is on conflict. Graduate school is an intense time in your life. It should be consuming. It should be a long-term investment of your time and energy, building up your intellectual capital, building up your resources, building up your credentials so you can go out and do that job that you're really excited about getting trained how to do. But it can also be a time when conflicts arise because it is such an intense time. You are probably working very closely with, for example, an advisor. And anytime you're working closely with somebody in a relationship where one person clearly has more power than you do in that relationship, there's the potential for conflict, there's the potential for misunderstanding, there's the potential for poor communication, and I'm convinced that lies at the heart of a lot of the conflict that I see when issues come to the level of the graduates. So I'm going to take about 1 more minute before I turn the time over to our speaker. And what I want to focus on is if you end up in a situation where you feel like you're in a conflict situation and you don't know where to turn next. In many cases, you may be able to go to your advisor. But if that conflict is with your advisor, that may not help. You may not feel like that's really the appropriate place to go. The next person that you might turn to would be your department head. Or if your particular department has an associate head for graduate studies, biology department, that might be an appropriate person to turn to. But again, depending on the source or the nature of that conflict, you may not feel comfortable going to any of those people. The dean of your college is another option. But I want to make sure that you all realize that I'm also a person that you can come to. If you're having issues that you don't feel comfortable talking with your advisor or with someone in your department or with your college, I can serve as a person to come and talk to raise those issues. I can have conversations with you that I can assure you will be held in confidence. We had situations where students came to our office and said, I'm in this situation, I'm afraid of retaliation. I don't want you to say anything to my advisor until after I graduate. It's fine. I'm happy to do that. And I can guarantee you that I will keep those sorts of conversations anonymous. I can hold a further communication until you feel that you're comfortable, that you're ready, and we need to have that next conversation with somebody who may be in a position where you can start coming. So please be aware, my notes refer to those people, and that's not an official part of my title, but I hope that you will yourselves and also talk to your graduate students, encourage them if they are in situations arise where conflict has arisen and they don't feel comfortable talking with somebody in your program, in your department, in your college, you want somebody else to either vent to or come and ask for suggestions. I don't have all the answers certainly, but if it's a serious situation and somebody needs to step in and serve as an advocate on your behalf, that's part of my job as well. So please just keep that in mind as you go through this topic today. Our speaker today is Matt Sanders. Matt is a professor in communication studies and he's also the associate dean in the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. He's an expert in this kind of area. Obviously, he knows a lot more about it than I do. So I'm going to
So we could just turn off the projector and all this board out there, just whiteboard work. I'm really glad that there aren't any faculty here today, except for me and Richard. I did a workshop like this a few years ago, but there were graduate students and faculty, and there was kind of this awkwardness, especially when the graduate students are like, how do I talk about some of the things I'm dealing with? So I'm really happy that it's just you. We'll employ the Las Vegas rule here, right? Whatever we talk about here stays here, and nobody's gonna. This is the time for you to be able to think through this, because the relationships that you have with your faculty and your advisors and all this stuff, they're just laden with a lot of power dynamics. And when you feel like you're in conflict, I think it's frustrating. So I wish that I could magically just make it all go away in an hour and a bit, but that's not possible. But hopefully what my goal is today is just that I can help you think about having better conversations about your conflict and get you unstuck. How many of you feel stuck in your conflict? You just don't know what to do, don't know what to say. Like you just sort of, like, where do I go and what do I do? So hopefully we'll get you unstuck. As we go along, I'm going to ask for some participation in discussions. I'm going to ask you some things, and if you have questions, please ask them. Even if you disagree, right? That's what I do. I'm not buying that. You can disagree with me. We'll have those conversations. Because what I'm going to talk to you about today isn't always intuitive, because our instincts are always about self-preservation and self-defense. And I'm going to talk to you about some intuitive. So, sound fair enough? Good ground rules. So just a quick start out just to ask some questions. What are the kinds of conflicts that you have or that you worry about? Help me understand your situation. What are the kinds of conflicts that you're worried about having there? Maybe there's ones that go through. Why should you get a sense of it? Yeah, because sometimes it springs up on me. At least it feels that way. I'll argue a little bit on it. It doesn't spring up on me. But it blows up on me, right? And that's frustrating. Especially when it just happens. You said cute, right? Like, you're not just. Yeah. Okay. But other conflicts that maybe you have are types of, you don't have to say like I'm having this.
We have someone online who says conflicts with their teenage daughter.
Yeah, I have 2 teenage sons. I have no idea what I'm doing. Yeah, I mean, these kind of conflicts with again, and teenagers and parents, it's probably not different than there's a desire for independence, while there's a lot of dependence. Like there's a power difference. That's the stuff, yeah. Oh. I just said in the way, Yeah, sometimes we get these, we call it a miscommunication. It's not on the same level. And that, how's that feel? How would you describe the emotion? That's not fun, right? That's a good example. Other things that you're uh-huh. Yeah, and all those involuntary relationships, right? I mean, your involuntary relationship most probably like your parents, relatives, right? But you also don't get to choose who's in your lab. These are all just, I guess you have it, technically you could just be like, yeah, I'm going to quit. These guys will investors. They're different. These are the concepts of, oh yeah, yeah, independent is good. Bosses, this is always fun. Yeah, that's a significant one. And these are all important, and we've had some like personal stuff, like when we talk about conflict, whatever conflict you're thinking about, children, with your spouse, your family, with your coworkers, your advisor, whatever, this is applicable to everything. All fair game. So, welcome to being human beings. Right? There's only one way to not have conflict, and that's not to care about anyone or anything. Like if you can accomplish that, then you won't have, if you simply won't care. So I want you to think about conflict a little bit differently today. Do that. I haven't done this exercise already. I want to put up some metaphors of conflict. So you describe these conflicts. Family members, peak moments, personalities, frustrating kind of miscommunication. If I had to ask you to use a metaphor about how you personally feel in your conflict, and that's this handout here, which by the way has my colleague Clark Cantor on the top there. He's like the content expert in this. One of our excellent teachers. So it says conflict is, I'm going to use a metaphor. Once in a while, with freshmen, smart kids, 80 years or whatever. But if you had to use a metaphor to describe how you personally feel in conflict, let me tell you one that I carried with me a lot of my life, and it still comes out when I'm in a really hard conflict. I feel like I'm in the third grade and I'm being lost with people. I was going to use a metaphor to describe it. You know, like you're little, your teacher got you right, maybe so we don't know if this is right, but like the teacher got you by the arm, they're walking you down the hallway, and there's just this intense like it is coming. And it's going to be acute, right? And I can't get out. I mean, that would be a way that I would describe how I feel. I would like for some of you to share with me what a metaphor would be for you. And your metaphor matters because you need to know how you feel in response to conflict. Whether you share it or not, you should jot down a metaphor that helps you think about how you feel in conflict. Is that a metaphor?
You're all like hot and sweaty and well done. Might feel better for a little bit.
Yeah, the flu like this, and I'm not cold. The flu, right?
For me, I sometimes feel like I'm drowning. I feel like I'm beating my head against the wall, trying to communicate with my kids, and it's just not sinking in. And then the wife comes in and says something that kind of wins all the kids over to her, and suddenly I'm the odd man out.
Yeah, that's hard. Other metaphors. Good metaphor. And it's your metaphor. There's no right or wrong, but how do you feel? What's your emotion response?
For me, some people are.
Yeah, over caffeinated, right? Which, and again, for you, like this makes you feel over anxious. Yeah, everything's good. Because anxiety does that to you. You don't feel that. And conflict can be that way. Like you always, the body's always. Body. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Learning or shooting, and someone is like sprinter is like running around.
Yeah. If I just tried moving target, is that
Sure,
enough? Yeah. Because that's frustrating. Because I mean, you notice how good these metaphors are, because it's like archery requires that slow pullback of attention and careful, and then the person. How in the world am I supposed to? Yeah, there's kind of like a futility.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, but you just feel like there's, like you're working towards a goal, and the goal is not what you're working towards. Like you're working towards the wrong thing.
Yes. Frustration. Yeah, good. The metaphors. What? What are you?
Well, I guess for me, it's always like sometimes what kind of conflict it is, who it is, and the shape of conflict, or you want, what I'm actually looking at conflict, but always be perfect. I don't know, like, the reasons why you're customized for.
Sure. Yeah, and again, just what's your emotion like when when I've been bad, when somebody's been bad to me, like my metaphor might be different. You can have multiple metaphors, for sure. Any others you want to throw up here that you think would be helpful?
For me, it feels like I'm being run over by a train because the train is really big and I can't do anything.
Yeah.
And I can't, yeah.
You notice some commonalities with these, like the severity. It's not that you're just getting run over by a go-kart or a bicycle. It's a train, like the heaviest thing you could possibly think of, right? That just, and there's no survival of it.
Yeah.
You could survive maybe getting run over by a car, possibly, not by a train, right? Drowning. I mean, what I've done this with lots and lots of groups, freshmen, working professionals, faculty. I've done this in lots of ways, and there's always these kind of like death metaphors, like drowning and getting run over by a train, and there's a severity to it. There's all this futility, frustration. Like it's not pleasant. We can all agree on that, right? Conflict things. Not fun. We don't like it. And we tend to have a pretty negative view of conflict. And so therefore, if you take the conflicts that you're talking about, like dealing with teenagers or your wife is giving all these mixed messages, and keep trying, and if this is how you think about conflict, how likely are you going to be to address it? Let's go catch the flu. You got the flu right in my face. That would be awesome, right? We don't do any of this. We stay away from conflict because it's just this terrible thing, right? I don't want to be run over by a train, and I'm not going to go lay down on the tracks. Somebody's going to have to tie me up and set me on the tracks before I ever do this. So this is where our problem starts, because it's so unpleasant. I want you, though, to entertain the notion that conflict is the solution. The conflict is the means by which you can get the things that matter most to you. It's not the thing that has to get out of the way. It is the way. Because you're never going to be able to get over conflict. You're always going to be having conflict. So you talked about this acute moments of like, today's fine. Yesterday was fine, today's terrible, or tomorrow will be fine, kind of thing. But you're always in conflict, whether it's expressed or latent. There's always conflict. So I want you to think about, could conflict actually be the means by which I can get what I want? That I can achieve greater understanding? Because sometimes we have this notion that all of our relationships should be perfect and positive, and if they're not, then there's something wrong with, well, maybe us, usually the other person, right? That's how we like to see it. So I want you to think about that, and we want to be able to address conflicts in better ways, but doing this is kind of like learning a new language. Anybody here learned a new language, second language? What's so hard about learning a second language? What makes it hard? Yeah, if you don't practice it regularly, you won't be able to actually figure out. What else is hard about learning another language? Yeah. The words are different, the grammatical structures could be different. Sometimes they're opposite. You have a,
There's like a lot of internal translation.
Yeah.
And then you translate here, filter, go here.
Yeah.
Go back.
Yeah, it's really hard. My kids are in the dual immersion Chinese, and it's really fun. My oldest, so they're fourth grade and first grade. My oldest is 15. He's taking Chinese at high school, but it's funny to watch him like going just translate. But my fourth grader, who's been in Chinese for 3 years now, and started when he was 6. Like he's like, oh, it's just like this and this, you know, because he kind of learned it in a little different way. But yeah, it's kind of fun.
I was just saying, it takes patience from another person.
Yeah. Yeah. Be patient with me as I do it. How many mistakes do you make as you're learning a new language? A lot, right? What we're doing here is helping you think about a different language. You can make mistakes. It's not perfect. And what I'm going to tell you about how to do this better is not easy, right? But we want to try and practice. Like watching a new baby walk. Have you ever seen that, right? And everyone wants the baby to come to them. The signals are their favorite. And the kid takes a little step right and falls down. Does anybody go like, you stupid baby, stand up, like walk. Look, it's easy. It's step, step, step. Like that would be absurd. Nobody does that. And as you're working on doing your conflicts better, I want you to be patient with yourself. Because you're gonna try some of this stuff. It's not gonna be perfect and it's not gonna be easy, there's no magic formula. Just like learning a new language or learning to walk, it's important to just embrace that if you can think about this and try it, things will be better. All right, so let's talk then about needs real quick. What's most important in the world to you? What things matter most to you in your life? You really deeply care about. Yeah, you want some security. Part of your pursuit of graduate studies is mostly that security later on. What else? Security. Yeah, the work that you do, like the confidence and being able to know how to do something. Your identity wrapped up here. Yeah. What else is really important?
My family.
Your family. How many of your relationships are important to you? Yeah. No matter how many times I've done this, nobody says like how the lawn is mowed or the dishes being done, right? Or the lab schedule. Like, we don't talk about those things as being most important. But what do we usually have conflicts about? How the dishes are done, does the lawn will get mowed correctly, did you come home on time for curfew, did you give me proper instructions? We have conflicts about all kinds of stuff. Okay, all kinds of stuff. We have number one conflict for the freshmen coming in living in the dorm. What's their number one conflict? With their roommates, and it's about dishes. Dishes, and none of them care about dishes, right? Because they're all messy and immature. I mean, this is sort of that part of life. When you're 18, you're not like, I really value a clean, organized kitchen. But they get mad at each other about the dishes. We have all these conflicts. So one of the things I want you to think about is it's not about the dishes or whether the toilet seat is up or down, right? Because regardless of who's going to the bathroom in the middle of the night, it takes a half a second to put it down or lift it up. Right? It's not about any of those things. It's about something deeper. You need to figure out what that is, and it's tied to the things that you care about the most. So this is the cool thing about conflict. When you're in conflict, it's signaling to you what you really care about. But you've got to get below the surface and get to the root of it. Okay, so if you're having a conflict Well, you just let all of it straight away. We'll use this conflict as an example. Sure, and you echo that. So you're getting these mixed signals from your advisor. Do this way. Well, you didn't do that. Now do it again. Well, I can't tell you, like this kind of stuff. What is it about that really bugs a person? What's really at stake there is the heart of that conflict.
I think number of reasons what every time it's a time lapse to do it, seconds after
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here's this. I'm not being recognized, valued, and kept right putting in. What else might be at the core of that? If you're in that situation. You went back to identity again, right? That matters. Yeah, I mean, that's really important. Yeah. I've wasted my time. And why does that bug you? I mean, we all waste time. Like, everybody watches. Right? We're all good at wasting time. Why does that bug you in that context? It's about me, right? And again, it's my identity and who I am. All of our conflicts are rooted in our identity, in our confidence, in our likability. And all of these are called base, we call them base things. I want to be likable and confident and independent, like who I am and what matters to me. Like, why does the teenager parent conflict such a big deal? Is it really about what blue curfew is? Or if you can use the car, what's the conflict about? Independence, right? It's about independence. I want to be able to make my own decisions and my own things, right? What is it about for the parent? You're trying to get the kid to do the thing they want them to do. Yeah, I want to be respected, right? So you can have a big, long conflict about whether or not my kid should be home at midnight or 11 or like whatever it might be. We can have this big conflict about that, and we can go back and forth over that issue, but it's not about curfew. But if I'm like, hey son, I'm feeling like I'm not being respected in this moment. He says, Dad, I'm feeling like a baby. I feel big and taller. I'm not a baby. I mean, this is bothering me. That's a different kind of conversation. Well, you said this, and I said that. No, I didn't. And we go back and forth. So we got to get to the root. We got to get to the root of the conflict. And you don't always know that right in the moment. You may have to take some time, go on a walk. Might take you a couple of days to really figure out what's bothering you. Always going to come back to these things that matter the most. Like how we are in relationship with each other. And in your situation as graduate students, you're all hyper concerned about your conflict. You'll always be concerned about your conflict. I'm concerned. I'm concerned about it right now. Right? I want to make sure I don't come off as an idiot. But now you've got this advisor, you're trying to learn something, you don't know that, you're mentored, and so feeling incompetent will drive you to be confident. But then we sort of blame it on these higher things. All right, questions so far? We'll take a break. Does anybody have questions or thoughts? Yeah.
Just a quick anecdote. Really funny how arguments will start. Toilet paper should go over the top. It goes underneath. What are you thinking?
Apparently, there's a patent that shows it.
Yeah. I'm engineering student.
There is a right way.
And yeah, and I was thinking of the backwards, but it hurt last week when you said that. You know?
Yeah.
It was like this little thing what the combo was or something.
It was something else, right? I mean, toilet paper, toilet seat, those sort of really silly examples. I mean, it's just about respect. Can you respect me enough to just, or could you just let me be right once in a while? You engineer, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because there's a right way to do things. I mean, this is the kind of thing that we have to drill down on. Yeah, I mean, and that's a hard question to answer because we just have to feel this out with each other. And so you're going to make mistakes. Like you're gonna have conflict with your advisors and your family and neighbors. I mean, sometimes you feel like we're in conflict with people. I'm in conflict with government. I don't know if I'm in conflict with government. Like maybe I don't like my community. We'll answer that more broadly as we go along. But I don't want to pretend that there's some like if you just do these things and this doesn't happen. It's sort of like when you're learning to dance, you're stepping on each other's toes. Sometimes it hurts a lot, sometimes it hurts a little. If you're learning how to dance together, it takes some time. And there's awkwardness to it. But you can have productive conversations, it's important. What we don't want to do is feel stuck and get like passive aggressive. How many of you like the passive aggressive? Right? I'm not going to say things, I'm going to leave notes, and I'm going to gossip to somebody else about what's going on. Right? Tell everybody about the conflict except the person you're in conflict with. And sort of try to build alliance. Some of you might go aggressive. Like Claire, my buddy who does this with me, he tells a story of his neighbor had this huge dog that kept moving on his lawn. We try to talk to his neighbor, and so one day he just takes a shovel and picks it up and puts it on their back doorstep, you know, and here you go. Like sometimes we just go that, and some of us just tuck it in. We tuck it in, and then we blow like a volcano. And the interesting thing with conflict is it kind of has this downstream effect. I was thinking about this way, like the parent gets yelled at work and they go home and yell at the kid, and the kid goes and takes the dog, and the dog goes and bites the neighbor. Right? So a lot of times the conflicts we're working on things that are bugging us, but we're working on it downstream on somebody else, which feels really unfair. And I've had those moments where I'm really frustrated with one of my kids, and it's like, because I'm frustrated with something over here, but I feel like I have the ability to. It's an abuse of power, right? But we do this as a human being. So we want to get unstuck. So here's this second part where it says vocab, finding the beauty in conflict. When we use the term beauty, we're not talking about conflict being happy or easy, but again, suggesting to you that conflict is the way for you to get the things you want, teach you what matters most, and signal to you what matters most by you recognizing what you're not doing. So this acronym vocab is just like a new language, new way of thinking about it. So the first one there is vulnerability. That sounds fun, doesn't it? I'm in conflict. Let's be vulnerable. Why is vulnerability so unsettling in conflict? Why is being vulnerable feel like a bad idea? Yeah. Open yourself up. You bet. Because once you're vulnerable and you share ideas and information, is it yours anymore exclusively? It's not, right? What happens if you're not vulnerable? What can you not do? What becomes impossible? Yeah, so are you ever going to get what you want in a conflict if you're not vulnerable? You can't, right? Because you become, if you've got your, if you like a pirate metaphor, right? Like you got your sword and your pistols, like you've got all this stuff and you're ready to fight. Nobody can do it. You need that sort of moment of truth. So vulnerability is risky. I'm not suggesting you have to lay it all out in a moment, but letting people know what you actually think, and feel, and what your experience is like is important. This is how I'm feeling. And the vulnerability isn't about hatred and toilet paper falling underneath, right? But being vulnerable about, yeah, when you make me come home at 10 o'clock on the weekend, I feel like a little kid. It makes me feel like a baby. Or when you tell me that I have to learn it on my own and I can't get any help, it makes me feel like I'm incompetent. Like, that's a different kind of conversation, and that's hard to say to your father. I feel like a little baby right now. That can be hard. But vulnerability is important because it gives us here. So here you see the gift given and the gift received and what facilitates. These are really important. So when you're vulnerable, you're given the gift of trust. Well, I disclose information to you, we now share it. That's offering of trust. What that gives you is that you get to feel authentic. This is who I am and how I feel. You don't have to pretend that you're the kind of person who doesn't mind being yelled at. You can just say, I don't like being yelled at. I don't like being yelled at. That's why I have no sports career, besides the no. I don't like being yelled at. I don't want somebody barking. Some of you are okay with that. Maybe that doesn't bother you. For me, it bothers me. So what that does, though, is it facilitates connection. You're never going to solve a conflict if you don't have any kind of connection. You can't have connection unless you're open up and let people know how it makes you feel. It's not about the topic. It's about the thing that it really is about. Your confidence, your independence, your likability, whatever it might be. So it does rebuild. If I tell my kids, look, you don't ever want to listen to me, don't follow my rules, and make me feel like unloved or bad. I want you to respect me. I want you to think I'm cool. I want you to, right now, I don't feel like you think I'm cool. I mean, if I say that, that's pretty vulnerable, but that's different than just, you need to do what I say. Because we get really defensive, we're not really letting them know what it's about. Does this make sense? Questions or comments?
I just think that I respect you. I partially do it right now, but I also
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
this is what I'm
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I remember getting through my PhD comprehensive exams. I don't know if you do this, we had to orally defend our answers. I just it was two faculty who I like and admire. They were like, the one professor said, here's the question we're going to ask, and here's all the literature review. I did it all, and I wrote the answer up. 3 hours second in the world of defense. He said, Matt, that's a good answer. Now let's talk about some other stuff. And his whole point was to make me realize how much I didn't know. I just got the spiritual haze a little bit. And another one asked me some really hard questions that were beyond the scope. And I felt really kind of blindsided because I'd studied all this stuff, and then they asked me these questions that extended beyond. And I just remember sitting with my advisor, and I mean, that's pretty vulnerable, right? And he's like, oh, you're okay. And I said, I know, but listen. I mean, and it was a vulnerable moment, but it allowed him to be like, hey, you'll be okay. We all go through this. Yeah, some of those questions might have been just to sort of set you in your place a little bit, but you're gonna be okay. And I'm gonna help you through it. That's different than like, that guy's so unfair. He shouldn't have done that. And I'm okay. And I'm smart. But you get all defensive, and then all of a sudden you don't get any connection and help. And then well, vulnerability is kind of risky, but watch what happens when you do it. You can try it in low stakes situations. Just try being vulnerable about what you think and feel about it and see what happens.
So how do you know that the person is really vulnerable and trying to open up versus manipulative, knowing that this is in fact your opinion on that thing?
Yeah. We're really nervous about that, and so it's hard to tell. We don't even like telling people where we want to go. If you've done this, right? Where do you want to go to? I don't care. Let's go to 5. Well, just tell me where you want to go, right? Because you really do have an opinion. You do care. So part of it's just taking it step by step. Trust is built over time and slow. Sometimes you can feel the authenticity, or you can feel the manipulation. Right? I mean, I watched one of my graduate mentors. He did this exercise. It was an MBA class. It was outside my department. And he did partly with the semester asking for feedback in the class if they liked it. And he worked it in a way, I'm not quite sure how he did it, but they just got into a frenzy with that. Well, it's expensive, this, I don't like this, and they were all like, and he just sat there and just listened, and they just kind of, he's an orientation behavior professor, so he's kind of manipulating by not responding in a way, but he did all this stuff, and then he just stopped and he said, do you think I did all this on, like I chose a book on purpose? Do you think that I went and thought, what's the most expensive and important book I could possibly have? Do you think that was mine? And it was just really kind of a vulnerable question in the moment. But they were pretty, I think they were far more harsh than he anticipated in this thing. But it was just amazing how the feeling just sort of just went away. And there was just like, oh, it was like, I feel like I wasted my time. I feel like, what's my time? Why did I do anything? Like your advisor knows what that feels like. If you're with a student, I don't know if you teach classes, right? And you want to answer that. Rather than trying to pretend, because usually when we're defensive, we just set up all these false notions. Well, the answer is, you know, people can see that. But I don't have an easy answer for that, so see it out. Make your assumptions. And you do it piece at a time. Vulnerability is happening a little bit. You don't have to walk into it. Oh, hey, this is how I feel about everything. Take your time. All right. Second one is ownership. This is taking accountability of your own stuff. How many of you have tried to have a conversation about conflict and you sat up at night thinking about it, about what you're going to say, exactly how you're going to say it, so you'll say it in a way that they won't think a certain thing or feel a certain way? This is taking ownership over other people's stuff. You only get to have ownership of your own stuff, right? First of all, your emotions, owning your emotions. Now, I'm not saying that your emotions aren't real and they aren't caused by certain things, but they're yours. So I'm really super sensitive to being yelled at. I just cannot, it's just so hard. Some of you probably aren't that. Right? Some of you might not be that. Somebody yells at you. I had a friend's dad yelled at him all the time. Like, you don't care about that. Or people who play sports, like that's part of the rules, right? You yell at all the time. So if somebody yells at me, I'm going to feel a certain way. It'll be hard for me not to feel that way. And then those emotions are okay, they're mine. This is mine. This is how I feel. This is how I typically react to these things. But no one gets to make me feel it. Because emotions are just responses to something. We, through our own experience in life, build up those kinds of responses. We need to own our emotions. I may feel sad. You say, goodness, I feel sad. These are my emotions. They're not necessarily your fault. Because, you know, how do you feel when somebody tries to put their emotions on you? Like you're responsible for their happiness. Like, how does that make you feel? I'm so unhappy. So wonderful. Now maybe you have to own your part of it, but owning our emotions is important. Letting people own theirs. You can't control whether they freak out. You can't control what they say. Now again, look at the gifts here. When you take ownership over your own stuff, you get to feel confident. Because you can take care of your own stuff. You empower the other person because you need to let them take care of their stuff. And then it facilitates cooperation. If you really want. That's the currency of conflict. Even if somebody's angry, if they're willing, that's a good thing. So I want you to think about it in this way. Say you get a bad grade on some assignment. Like where you have some problem in the lab. Then you go to your professor like, I studied really hard, I worked really hard on this, and I know I had it right, and this is not fair, and your test is wrong. And how likely is your professor going to be to cooperate? Like you just dumped everything of yours on their lap and said, you have ownership over all of these things that are mine. As opposed to going and saying, vulnerability and ownership, right? I'm really frustrated with this, right? I felt like it was a lot of hard work. I felt like I knew what I needed to know to do well on this. I obviously could. You help me understand where I've gone wrong and what I can do to do it better in the future. I want to figure this out. How long am I going to be cooperating with you if you say that to me? This is what we mean by ownership. Don't own people's stuff. Don't try to own their emotions. And you got to own your own part. Even if you've been hurt in a conflict and somebody's done something to you, how many of you waited 4 months to say anything? You have to own that. You have to own the conversations you haven't had. You have to own the things you haven't been willing to be vulnerable about. You have to own your own part. And then you'll have a willingness and cooperation, but when you make them own it, or that's when you feel manipulated. They're trying to make sure you don't have a certain emotion. They might have. Like, oh, how do I tell him that? He's stumped it up and it's not good. I don't want him to feel that. Well, maybe I should feel that. Maybe I should feel that. Maybe I shouldn't feel despair. Maybe I should feel incompetent. Does that make sense for ownership? I love taking ownership because it just gives me a sense of I don't have to be responsible for everybody else's stuff. I can be responsible for my own and just honestly look at it. If I say something hard to my kids, like you're grounded or you can't do this, you can follow these rules, and they freak out. You freak out. As long as I was vulnerable and open and honest with them, they have a hard time with it. I can help them get through that. It's not my fault. The student goes storming out of my office and I'm not going to change and answer on the task. You want willingness and cooperation. And that's another way to have conversation. Questions or comments on that? Yeah.
Isn't there a point where you just want to not be vulnerable to people? Well, I had an experience where I got hurt by a family member and I didn't realize how I was affecting me for years and years. And I apologized. My coach was important, so I didn't know what to do. I struggled with feelings that was a long time. So I wanted to do it. I wanted to go. And then and totally this. And so then from that point on, I made it something that I could go to them.
You don't have to trust people that aren't worthy of your trust, right? If I go and say, if I'm vulnerable to you and tell you I'm feeling, and you like one answer, like I don't have to tell you stuff. So you can determine who you trust and why you trust them. So that's an act of vulnerability. I want to let you know, but you did that not for their benefit, but for yours, right? That was more for you to be able to not be holding that, because grudges hold us back. When you forgive somebody, it's for your own good. Research shows when you hold grudges, you forgive, veins part, your arteries are thick. There's really interesting research on forgiveness relationship. But if they're like, no, I didn't do that defensive posture, whatever, you can respond. You own your part. They have to own their part. And you have to be smart about it and not force it. Let it happen. But it's okay to be like, I'm not going to talk. You don't have to be open. It's like if you loan me money, I won't get back. Am I broken the law again? No. But if they come back at some point and want to talk about it, it's just there's a carefulness to it. But vulnerability starts the process of connection. And it doesn't, we always think that conflict is like a moment. We're going to sit down and solve this conflict and it's really get through. You always have that conflict. Your identity, your confidence, your likability, your relationships, like it's always. So, you're like, I'm not going to talk about it. But it's okay. I think you're right to be vulnerable like that, and if they're not vulnerable back, then they don't want that connection. That's probably acceptance.
So
So what about when that situation happens in an involuntary relationship with a faculty advisor? What can you do in the situation of being vulnerable?
Yeah, so one, I would keep trying a little bit, like being careful, but yeah, really, this really matters to me. I really want to talk about it. Sometimes people need some time, especially people who are more introverted. Introversion doesn't mean you don't like people, it just means that you are more reflective when you speak. You can corner somebody rather than saying, "Can we talk? This is bugging me. Can we talk about this?" If somebody's really impermeable, it's an involuntary relationship, and you're feeling like I can't graduate or I can't do my research or whatever, that's when you seek somebody else to help you. Particularly in the power dynamic that you have. Right? But sometimes it just takes time. Like if there's a big conflict, it may take, like family conflicts, like it may take years to really work through and build that. If it's in your work situation, then you'll find Richard and he can help you either know how to have a conversation better, or sometimes you need a little bit of help. You can't force it. My experience is that most of the time when you're vulnerable, people will sometimes they don't. When you don't, that's when you go and get some help. If it's impeding your progress, you probably don't need to do that in terms of your that situation. Does that answer your question? Any other questions? Okay, let's talk about the communication process. Think about the stories you tell, because you all love drama, right? That's your favorite thing in life. You can be in the middle of drama. You say, what do you watch on TV? You watch dramas, don't you? Like, why is there 48 seasons of Breaking Bad? Why do these dramas go on forever? We never saw it. Right? So think about the stories we tell about conflict. Did they ever end in question mark? The exclamation mark. You said this, and I'm just like, you know exactly what they're thinking, what they're saying, what the motives are, and you tell these stories. And we look for people to save us, right? We want somebody to be the hero. We play the villain or the victim. But then we go and play the victim or the villain. We want a hero. No, right? If you want somebody to come in and save you, the hero role actually keeps the conflict going. You don't let people solve their conflict. David? So think about the stories you tell in conflict, and I would encourage you to think about it more in terms of questions. So we talk about this as ask, listen, and express. Instead of express, and then listen. Usually when you express something, and without listening, you don't know. You ask open, honest questions, which aren't, where were you yesterday at 4 o'clock? That's not an open, honest question. Because you already know the answers to it. If your open, honest questions are, what does this feel like? How does that make you react? Or tell me more about how this is going. And you want more than you. Why did this happen? Can you help me understand the decision? Why do I have to do this on my own? I don't understand. Help me understand that. Ask questions first and get good information. Listen, not to respond, but just to understand. Then you can express your answer. Otherwise, you get in trouble. So in one of my graduate classes, we had group projects. We all had to spend on certain nights. We did 2.5 hour class. And as a member of the class shows up 15 minutes later. Somebody who's usually like always smiling, who never seems to have any problems with it. He kind of comes in quickly and sits down. And, how do you think the group's feeling in the moment? The group member's 50 minutes late and does oral defense in front of the professor. Super hard. So the break comes in class, and she goes, as soon as the break, you know, gets up, I'm sorry, guys. I was driving on the highway, and this dog got hit. It's like, stopped, and I put it in my coat, I took it to the vet, and got it all stuff, got it paid for, whatever, and got it. What would happen if I was like, where in the heck did you think? Like, don't you know how important that is? Like, what is going on? Like my emotions in the moment where I feel like I'm going to be exposed and not going to get a good grade. Like that might be justifiable in some sense, you might be feeling that way. But what happens when she's like, I'm saving Yeah, you feel completely stupid, right? Now, the interesting thing is, and I love that I had this experience because it makes a great metaphor, like saving the company. It doesn't matter what the person is doing, they feel justified to the extent to which they were actually doing. What I was doing was really important. Making me late or whatever it was is justifiable. So instead of just expressing what's going on, why did you do it? I've done this too many times with my kids over the last little while. Why are you doing this? I told you to do that. Mom told you to do it. You know? And then I'll say, like, because you don't ask, you just express, and you do it with an exclamation point. And that expression means you know what the statement is. It's always effective. Everyone wants to ask questions. Find out why. Why do you have to do that? I'm feeling frustrated in the moment. In conflict, to help me understand like that kind of a conversation, and then express how you feel, right? Again, that gives us understanding and empathy, which allows us to change. The hardest thing in conflict to have is empathy. We are an anti-empathy society, especially right now. Social media has no empathy at all. We know all the things, we say all these things, we don't actually, what's life? We have a hard time going. It's always about what we think feel like. How do they say something? Sometimes people say things that hurt our feelings at the meeting. Say something stupid that hurt our identity. Usually we go to why that person's a terrible person and why I'm so good and I'm good. And you're what? And sometimes people just say things. You've said it. I've said it. That makes sense? That's the communication process. That's important. Next one is acceptance. We'll get back to your story here. Letting go of what you can't control and embracing what's new. Some of what we have to let go is things that we pretended existed in the first place, like roommates never fight, best friends never argue. Right? Letting go of some idealized version of the relationship that was never truly true. Which every sort of intimate personal relationship, spouse, significant other, children, parents. At some point, you have to let go of your parents. Everyone has to kind of let that go a little bit. So sometimes it's accepting that that's just not the case, or accepting that you can't control. I don't get control. That is important. You can't even control us little kids. Even if I can pick up my children, like my 4-year-old, I can't make them eat. Can't make them eat. There's a couple of things that when they're little, you just can't force. My oldest is now much taller than me. His weight's about the same, but he doesn't have as much in the middle as I'm carrying. So, like, I don't think I can out wrestle him. I can't force him to do anything. If we can accept the fact that we just have to embrace reality, my advisor gave me bad instructions, or this thing is a lot harder than I thought it was. Like, just accepting what's real allows you to be vulnerable and take ownership and communicate well instead of expecting something that's actually accepting the fact that you don't get to control this family member. And that's real, and that this relationship isn't fun and happy like I wish it was. But it is what it is. What are the gifts that facilitates? Gives you some autonomy, gives them security. Don't you want peace in your conflict? Like, even because you can't control everything and make it go out the way you want. So if you can live in a place of acceptance, I have teenagers and they don't want to be told what to do. Like, there's a point where I'm still kind of in this process of trying to accept the fact that I have no idea how to raise me, and I can't control them, and it's not going to be always happy and perfect. I'm really good at 5 years. You got 5 years. Like, I'm really good at those. I've mastered it. I've had 5. I've spent for the last like 10+ years like doing this. I have to accept certain things. If you don't accept it, then you can't have peace because you have to control it. Surrendering peace is a big deal, especially when you can't control that. If your advisor isn't all that, right? Maybe your project isn't exactly what you want, or whatever it might be. Does this make sense? I know it's a hard pill to swallow, but you can't really work on your conflict if you're unwilling to accept what's real. That I have these labmates that I'm doing their own thing. Accepting that is part of it. All right, any comments on that? All right, the last one is boundaries. We establish closeness and connection with people based on no, not on yes. Right? It's on no. It's on the establishment of no, on specific boundaries that let us feel safe. So if you come by my house, if you come knocking on my door, and you're like, oh, you're the guy who's presenting the workshop, like, and you walk in, like, what's in the fridge? And you open up the refrigerator, and like, hey, where's the bedrooms at? You know, can I take a nap on your bed? Are we gonna feel close? Even though you got to look in my refrigerator and sleep on my bed, like, I'm gonna feel really distant from you, to the point where I'll probably call the police. You're gonna have more distance, right? When we establish boundaries, then we can say no. Right? I mean, anybody here like not a hugger? Like you don't like to hug everybody that comes around? You're not a hugger. Some of you, any of you a hugger in here? We like to hug people. There's some huggers, right? Is there wrong with being a hugger or not being a hugger? Yeah. Gotta have acceptance. Right? We just have boundaries. Right? But if I come in and I'm like, oh, I love all these graduate students, I'm so excited to see you. Right? You see how she's like getting away from me here, right? She has a boundary with me. What are you going to do if I hug you? Yeah. You'd be like, I don't have a student of concern report, I have a professor of concern report, right? Yeah, like, and if you see me coming across campus, you'd be like, go the other way, right? Now, are there people in your life that hug you? Sure, right? Because you have a boundary. And you've let them cross it. And when you let them cross it, you feel close. A lot of our conflicts are because we have boundaries that people are crossing and we've never told them about. Now, we should be attentive to nonverbal. Like, I walk over there and she's like, weird. I'll give you a demonstration of concept and workshop. Why don't we say things sometimes? Somebody crosses our boundary. Why don't we say things? Yeah, we're afraid of the conflict, except you already have one because they're crossing your boundaries, right? Why else don't we want to say something? Why didn't you want to say, hey, I'm happy to see you too. I'm excited about this workshop, but I just like to slap the hand or fist bump you. I'm not feel awkward.
I'm really strong. And like, because of that, you don't look like that. If you don't do that, you don't accept that. And you don't have to get off the boundary.
And then I get really mad at people for crossing the boundaries I didn't tell them I had. And then I punish them non-verbally and passive aggressively for doing that. Right? I mean, it's the irony of getting mad at somebody about your sarcasm. Yeah. Why are you so upset about the ambiguous communication I just gave you that was negative, but you were supposed to get with my nonverbal, right? I mean, I'm being really nerdy as I explain that, right? But that's what sarcasm is. I'm going to say something that's untrue, and I'm going to wink or use my dry sarcasm so that you know that it really is true, but the words actually are insulting. Like, I mean, this is really weird. That's like, what's wrong with you? We do the same thing with boundaries. Like, why didn't you see that? Why didn't you know that?
So that we're different, we want to be together, and somebody else that we don't talk about.
Mhm.
So you already said that you are not that close to me, although I want to do the thing that you're very close to me because you don't want to just make a wall and say, oh, there's a wall. It's kind of there, but not there.
You're like, oh, you run around together. Hey, good to see you. It's been some Tuesday, like, you know, what's up, right? And I mean, we have this. So there was this guy I met at my church, and the first day I met him, I walked up, and he goes like this. Like, hey, I'm happy to see you, but I don't shake hands. I don't want you to pat me on the shoulder or the back. I don't like touching. We just say hello. That's an awkward first introduction, right? But I actually felt really close afterward, because every time I saw him, it was like, hey, how are you? Good to see you today. How you been? Right? And we feel close because I know there's a line that he doesn't want me to cross. And I'm respecting it. He's established it. And we're actually close. And I've never shook his hand. I've never patted him on the back. We'll probably never ever hug. We just let this out. And it was really weird how at first it was like a distancing thing. But then it was, I mean, and this can be like in terms of like touch and stuff, but also like, I'm not okay with these kinds of conversations. I'm not okay with, you know, talking about somebody when they're not around. I don't want to be yelled at, right? Don't wear my clothes. Like roommates sometimes want to share each other's clothes or whatever. Whatever it might be, if you're getting your boundaries crossed, then you need to establish them, right? Yeah, the whole consent campaign is around, not around yes, it's around no. Because the idea of consent is walking past that boundary in an explicit way, right? Not just a wonder. So boundaries are important. Boundaries help you feel, help others feel safe and give you respect for what you want. And it's the facilitation you see if you have those boundaries. Sure.
So I just want to Jonathan and Ashley, it's really only that it's in the news.
Yeah.
Especially like some of this electric pole, you know. And now I go up to him in the morning, like, but hopefully my daughter was just on the one day, and I was in the budget. The one. I come back to my house. Why do you keep doing that? I don't like it when you do that. It was all loud and huge. I was interested in looking at it. Actually, even though I was operating on so I got both of them. After it, I knew there was a wall and it said question or wondering. It was that way to that. Then I got to the real.
Because the distance doesn't come because we're not going to hug. The distance is going to come if I do that and she doesn't want it. Right? And so therefore it's like just respecting that. Because it's not saying I don't want to have a relationship. I don't want to interact with you. It's just this kind of thing is not okay. I just like if somebody's like, hey, can we hug? And I'm like, no. Because I'm a hug. I like to hug in some ways, and some days I just don't. Especially if there are people I see all the time. Like for me, what is a hug then? Right? I mean, it's like the same thing as like a fist bump. And hug seems for me is something a little bit different. So I don't have to like hug all the time. Like we just establish these boundaries, but we can put them. Both. Just depends. Like sometimes we don't know we've crossed a boundary until it's been crossed. Sometimes we don't really know we have that boundary until somebody crosses it, especially when it's in a new dynamic, like with your advisors and your graduate faculty and yourself. Like you don't know that there's a boundary there until they're like, hey, you want to go out and have dinner? And you're like, no, I don't. Like, there's a distance I want to have here, right? Like, so it just depends on where you're at. But it's a nice way to start with a working relationship and say, this is how we want to work together. Like the boundary of, like my graduate advisor, who we were really close. And he got married while I was in grad school and invited me to his wedding. And like, we're really close. But I remember him telling me, like, Matt, I'm happy to see you whenever you want during my office hours. The person like, he was more than happy, but I could not just go up and be like, hey, Ryan, what's up? Not okay with it. I could just tell. Like there was a boundary, like this is how we can work together. This is when you can contact me. These are things like, if you email me in the middle of the night, I'm not going to respond to you in the middle of the night. It's just okay. And that boundary might be understood, might be understood. It's up sometimes in the middle of the night doing stuff. I get an email at 3 a.m. He's not coming back and being like, why didn't you respond? But if you did, then I'd be like, not okay. You can email me all you want. My phone's not going to be. My computer's closed. I'll email you. I'll respond back. If you just lay that out. But if you know certain things are okay or not okay, then just let them know. But even the boundaries, like I worked for a professor in grad school in addition to my funding line. And he paid me pretty well for it. And he just said, look, part of this job means that I can call you really late at night. And we can work on the things we need to for this class. I was TA. He consulted me through all of the things. So there were times where he'd call me like midnight, wake me up. Hey, it's time to do the final grades. But that was a boundary set up before. If you want this job, then I'm going to do this. But there are certain times where I'm going to need to work late at night. And I'm going to call you and you need to be okay with that. I'm okay with that. You want to pay me extra money? Like, that's something, but it wasn't like it was all established. This is going to be kind of how we're going to set this. Like, I'm not going to do this all the time, but at certain times I will. You just, no. And my wife went, why does it call so late? Because it's work. So, like, this was understood. But we're in a little apartment, so I have to like talk while she's in bed. You know, that makes sense.
Yeah, I can actually because I just remember that and it was just a use of words and it was the same word. And I started thinking culturally, we don't use such words, it carries more weight and form. So anything you need for the form with me, and later on, like, oh no, that's not like man. I'm not jumping up and down and going all this way. And okay, so that's what it means. So we're able to resolve that.
Yeah, and that can be the simple thing where this kind of stuff can help you solve problems because you can say, can you tell me what you mean by fool? Because my understanding of fool seems different and that's making this feel awkward. And then you can, okay, well, let's talk. Okay, well, that's not what I mean. And then you can understand. And then you can say, well, would you please not use that word with me? I'm not okay with it. It's still bugging me. Does this make sense? We should wrap it up because we've been at it a long time. I appreciate your note taking, your thoughts and your questions. I know this isn't easy. And I know I wish I could just like have a magic wand and say, if you don't have this anymore. But when you're in a conflict and it's frustrating, there's something bugging you that you're not getting. It might be respect, it might be confidence, it might be your identity, it might be your likability, it might be something like that. But if you can take time to figure out what it is, then you can get which is respect and likability and confidence. That way, when you have a conflict, you have a way to go forward, not something to go over. It can be more helpful. But you're going to stumble, you're going to fall, the syntax is different. But you can try this and have more productive conversations and try it in maybe low-stake situations and see how it works. Build it up. I think you can be really successful. I wish you good luck, and if you have other questions, I can hang on to them. Thank you.